morning and welcome to the DPW facility presentation and open meeting. Thank you all for coming. I appreciate your response here, and welcome yourself, help yourself with coffee and donuts. My name is Gary LeBlanc. I am the DPW director. I've been in town, worked for 16 years in this community, and as director, I started in this past September. With me today, I want to introduce my assistant director, Aaron Shalufo, to my left. To my right, I have my operations manager, Don Greel. Also, a new mechanic that started recently, Steve Drillis. And my GIS program manager to my right is Rob Craig. With that, we definitely have the necessary means to answer any questions that you might have. And going forward, I think we have enough experience and time here that we can assist with any thoughts or concerns or questions. Having said that, I would like to present my chairman, Commissioner Bruce Reed. I'll turn the meeting over to you.
Thanks, Gary. So the first thing I need to do is officially call the meeting to order because because all of us here that are on the committee are here. We have to have this official meeting. So here we are. And just so you know, I've said it before, but the committee members are from the Board of Selectmen, Don Campbell. Ruth George was our original chairman, then left and now is back. Thank you, Ruth. Andy Soul, somewhere. Andy, they're right there. Monica Lawton. And I think we've got her, right? I've not missed anything.
Yeah, Mike here from Western Sampson.
Oh, well, you're going to get to hear Mike from Western Sampson because he's going to speak to this. And so we'll start into the presentation to try and explain to you why we're at. And I should get out of the way of the screen so that you can see it, those that are you that are here. So we'll talk a little bit about the project overview and spend a lot of time on market conditions and the revised project. Okay, go. So, a little history on this building. It was built in 1956. And back in those days, Rockport was a lot smaller than it is today. We still think of it a very small town, but it was about half the size as it is at this time. There are lots of roads, just a lot of things have changed. So along the way, the town recognized that we needed to do an upgrade in this building and the facility. So in the early 90s, the commissioners took a look at it, engaged Weston and Sampson to do some feasibility studies, and they came up with a plan in 1992 for what this facility should be. I think one interesting thing is that that plan was larger than today's plan. It was a bigger facility. And then they updated the study in 2007 and then in 2016. And if you recall, in 2016, the commissioners brought this to town meeting to rebuild this facility. And we passed the town meeting and we lost at the in the election. There's a number I want you to remember for that. 8.8 million. That's what it would have cost in 2016 to build this building. 8.8. So moving forward in 2019, the town formed a building committee, which Monica chaired, and trying to determine what should we do up here. And they came back and said that, yeah, we need the building. And yes, we need pretty much a design that we got in 2016. So with the hard work that committee did, we were able to pass at town meeting and then also pass at the election to build the building. So some people, so the The Board of Selectmen at that time formed this committee, the building committee, and we started work on it. And I've read stuff on social media that said, you know what, they did a lousy job, they didn't move fast enough, and so forth. We did a lot in those first few months. We had to hire a design group, which became Weston and Sampson. We had to hire a property management company to be the town's representative in this building. And then the building needed to be designed and put out. A lot happened. That number was $12.5 billion. So we went from 8.8 to 12.5. So the committee worked hard, we did our work, and we put the building out to bids. And if you can tell, I'm not really following the slides. I'm talking to you, tell you what's going on. So we went out to bid, and the building came in at roughly $2.8 million higher than the amount of money we had. So at that point, we said, okay, what do we do? And we started redesigning this building, trying to re-engineer the building to get it to fit within the money we had. So I can tell you, we looked at a campus approach where we have buildings everywhere, trying to do it maybe one section at a time. We shrunk it, and we just did a lot of things. We finally got the money and got it to underneath the cap that we thought we had, needed to reach. The problem then became the market kept escalating. Remember, we got into this process just as COVID hit. So talk about perfect storm. It was, everything was rising in price. We're dealing with all this. So the committee, and we had a lot of interesting discussions, should we say, at committee level. What should we do? Should we come back to the town looking for more money? Should we sit it out for a while to see if there was a market correction? And we basically chose to sit around a while and hope that the market came down. But we all know what happened there. It kept going up and up and up. So finally, the committee decided the only way we can build this is we need to get more money. So then it became a challenge. Well, what is the right amount of money? And I remember Don sitting there saying, you know, I don't want to support this until we really have a good number. And then how do we get that good number? And we worked hard to find that right number. So what I'm going to do now is turn this over to Mike Richards from Weston and Sampson to kind of just to discuss the numbers. How did we determine $5 billion was the right number? Mike?
Thank you. Can we do the slides?
Yeah, you can hit this button.
The return, the shift button, the return button,
Or
enter. That one. Okay, excellent.
Okay,
Terrific. I'm gonna talk about how we got to the $5 million. So starting with the construction costs. Okay, what we did at first is we have something better than an estimate to go off of. What we have is we have bids in hand, and we have three. What we recommend is we go with the average of the three low bids. You might say, why not just take the low bid? Well, if you take the low bid, you're not getting a good representation of what the market condition is, because we don't know the assumptions that GC had as they bid the project. We don't know if those savings or those opportunities or those assumptions that he took when he gave his bid are still valid. So to be sure that we're getting you the right price, we recommend taking the average of the three low bids. Next, we have a market adjustment at 10%. So from the time that we bid the job, when we talk to our estimator and we talk to contractors, they say anywhere, the market adjustment now is anywhere between 10%, I'm sorry, between 8% and 12%. So we took the average of that and we went with the market adjustment of 10%. Next, what we do is we have a design and pricing contingency of 1.5%. It's industry standard. It's anywhere between 3 and 1%. In this case, we're using 1.5%. But also what we have is the market continues to escalate, right? We have an escalation factor that we have to include, and we have to escalate it to 2022 because the bids were open back in 2021. So now we have another 4.5% that we added, and that gets us to $15.1 million construction costs. In addition, we have soft costs. We've already committed $1.4 million. That's for architectural and engineering fees. That's the owner's project manager that Bruce had already talked about. That is utility back charges, legal fees, bidding fees, things like that. Those are soft costs that are included. In addition, we have to carry construction contingency. That's for generally latent conditions that might come up. Industry standard is generally around 5%, but in this case, what we recommended is 6%. And the reason that we recommended 6% is because we have ledge in the ground, we have unsuitable soils, and we also have contaminated soils. So we recommend that you carry a little extra, and that we got 6%. That gets us $2.3 million in soft costs. And so if you look at your total project costs, plus your current funding allocation, it gives us a budget shortfall of $5 million. And Bruce, you want to talk inside?
I think I'm going to ask Andy. Maybe so.
Thank you, Mike. The debt service on the bonds will be issued for this project. Probably won't be issued until 2025, maybe early 2026. So they would first impact property tax amounts in 2026. It was estimated based on all the current assumptions that in the first year of debt service, including both principal, retirement, and interest, would be $1.4 million. That's the bar to the left over the number 1, first year of debt service. But over the 20-year life of the bonds, the annual debt service obligation declines each year. This is because we have a flat amount of flat amount of principal we're paying off each year. That reduces the outstanding amount of bonds, therefore there's less interest expense. So we actually dropped from 1.4 million in the first year of debt service down to about 845,000 in year 20, which is when the bonds are fully retired. So the purpose of it, that's a 41% decline in the debt service obligation over the 20-year period. The point of this is that in the first year, it was estimated that the $5 million budget increase would increase the tax rate by 9 cents per $1,000 of valuation. 9 cents per $1,000. So you can take whatever your property is worth, multiply it by 0.09 times, divide by 1,000, and figure out what the additional tax burden would be. I think we calculated it based on the median assessed valuation for residential properties in 2019, and it came to an additional $46 per year in the first year. And then that will decline in each subsequent year until the bonds are retired, drop off entirely. So that's a picture of debt service, what it would mean to you, and how the impact of that would decline each year over the 10 years.
Okay, so let me show you some. So here's some looks at some of the designs that we looked at along the way. These are all what we call value engineering changes to the building and how we can make this all work. And I'm not going to go through each one of them individually, but you can see we took a lot of different looks at places they could fit. And one of these, interestingly enough, is we took all the storage out of the design. So it's sort of like if we were all building a new house and we built a house without any closets, no closets in it. And we even looked at that, trying to figure out how can we do this. So one of the things we looked at in this one is we just start with what we need, what we think, or some of us think. It's never been decided yet, but the shop. So it would be the mechanics area and the wash bay. And then we could later come back to the town and ask them more. We could afford to do that now, but it costs the town a lot more money because everything is escalating. So it's not a good choice. We don't want to do that. But what we want is a full building, which looks like this. Okay, so we tried. Now, the notion that we haven't tried is not true. We've looked at a lot of different designs to make this work. All right. So here's just some pictures of what some of you have looked at, but these trailers are where our foremen are located. Now, Wiz Tuffy, he's around here somewhere. He just walked out, but his office is over in one of those trailers. And then as we move a little further, this is the salt shed area. By the way, this is how we store our equipment these days because we can't fit everything in this building for a lot of different reasons. So our equipment's outdoors in the weather. And actually, for you up here, this is an example of what we've got. This is one of our big trucks, and that's as high as we can put it because they hit the overheads. Steve was trying to explain what a day in the life is of a mechanic up here, but he ends up fitting in between the beams to get the trucks up in the air. And by the way, the beams are wood. So he's going to be good at doing this. And, that's him standing beside one of these trucks, and you can see it's about, you can get it up about a little bit more than his waist in height. So that's really what we have to show you in the written or on this presentation. But I do want to invite Steve to speak a few minutes and just explain to you how difficult it is for our guys to work in this building and for him to do what he needs to do. So Steve, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Bruce. Hello, everybody. I'm Steve Jones. I'm the mechanic. I've been here since January 10th. And I got to tell you, you guys have a great town. You really do. A lot of people probably don't get up to see how great your town is. It's great, I got to tell you. And it's been great working here. Everybody here in this town is exceptional. With that being said, this needs to happen. As a mechanic point of view, it all rolls down that when a tree breaks, when something overflows, a drain clogs, the DPW comes out. We have a problem, the police, the fire department, the ambulance, the school department is all part of the municipality. With that being said, the mechanics is what keeps that going, to keep your town safe, workable, and to live every day safe. This garage is inadequate. Not only the air is inadequate, and you can see the space is definitely inadequate. The machines, the trucks are a lot bigger these days. It's hard. My day when I come in the morning is what I like to do is when I get in here is to start repairing to make sure everything's flowing correctly. Everything's fixed and everything's safe. The first half hour to 45 minutes of my day is waiting for all the vehicles to pull out because as you see, that is my workspace. And at night, that turns into vehicle storage. At the end of the day, when I'd like to work until I have to go home and sometimes late, my day ends around, I have to start in between 2:15 and 2:30 so they get all the vehicles in. That's tough. It's tough for me to do because I like to finish what I started. And sometimes if I start something and it's not done being repaired, I have to leave the vehicle in here on the lift. So what happens at that point is if you have a truck with a sander in it, I don't know if anybody knows what happens to sand and salt when it's left outside in the elements in cold weather and in damp weather, it turns into cement. That truck will then have to be pretty much hammered out, emptied and refilled. It's a waste. It's been tough. And as you can see the height, the lighting in here, very inadequate, very inadequate. Right now I'm making it work. Been a mechanic for a very long time. I make it work. This over a long period of time is very tough. They built this building, what year was it? 56. And what was it supposed to last? 50 years?
Yeah.
We're way over that. When I came in, I know that there was no mechanic here for close to 2 years, so I had to look back at the spending of outsourcing repairs, not just for the DPW, but for all departments. It was staggering, completely staggering at the cost that it cost to outsource and what this town paid out to fix vehicles. Well, we have a DPW mechanic now. Hopefully in the near future, we're gonna have another one. There's gonna be a lot coming through here. Every municipality vehicle, whether it be equipment, cars, trucks, should come through here. No more outsourcing unless it really has to be done for something that cannot be done in-house. But 98% of the stuff we can do in here. We've got the updated equipment and there's more to get. But in order to follow through with all of that, we're gonna need the space. We're gonna need the space with lighting, material, the height. And yes, leaving the vehicles outside. If you see some of these vehicles that are not that old, have taken a beating from the weather. It's not, and you say, well, a lot of vehicles sit outside. Not municipal vehicles that work on a daily basis to make the community safe, upgraded, and everything needs to be done. The roads getting cleared, everything. If something goes wrong in the town, the DPW, the police, the fire department, they get called. For one of them to get called and come out safely, they have to be fixed, maintained, repaired, and it has to be done properly. This building is definitely holding us back on a lot of aspects. So it had to be said. Maybe a fresh face saying it. I see it coming in here, and hopefully everybody will see the same thing. Appreciate everybody coming out again, and hopefully you'll be on board with us and see what we're going through. Thank you very much, Bruce.
Thanks. Yeah, one thing Steve did mention was this morning when we got here early, Aaron and Gary and Rob are here already, and one of the guys came in to take one of the small pieces of equipment right behind Jim and Aaron over there, started it up. The door was open, and this place just filled up with exhaust. This is no ventilation. The air quality in this building is terrible. And that's another issue. So we have a lot of safety issues we're dealing with as well in this building. Basically, that's our presentation. We'll entertain any questions anyone has. So anyone in the building? We'll start here. Yes.
Proposed budget enough to absorb the cost of increased market speculation and sanctions in the phone bill?
You know what? I couldn't quite hear all that.
Is the proposed budget enough to absorb the cost of increased market speculation and sanctions in the phone bill?
We hope. But we planned it, we get planned to be able to take that into consideration. So the goal is that, yeah, we will.
What's the interest rate assumption on the loan rebate?
2.75.
Thank you. Because I didn't know. Anything else? Out there in Zoom land, is there any questions?
I don't see any.
Hearing none, I guess we're pretty much done with the formal presentation. So I would say that we've got a lot of town employees here. So if anybody has any questions for Aaron, Gary, Rob, Steve, or Duffy. Sure.
How we try to save money exists. Nearly 50% of costs for services and systems required by code, therefore not subject to reduction. Just give us an idea of those indispensable systems.
Do you want to explain it from right here so it picks it up as well?
What's that?
Just explain it behind so that.
Okay. You know what, Mike, would you handle that one? I'm going to give you to the guy who's designing the building rather than me, because I'd miss something.
Yeah. Okay. So some of those systems. That's a great question. That includes everything that's required by code now. It's not the garage or the barn that your grandfather worked in. There's code requirements now that enhance everything from the insulation that we have to the HVAC and the ventilation requirements that we have. So, and not only that, there's also the safety component, human health and safety component. That also adds to that. So all of that is required by code. We can't avoid it.
Yeah.
For example, the walkers, the showers, that sort of thing is the space that's required by code.
Absolutely, yes. Thank you, Monica. The locker showers, et cetera, have code requirements in terms of the minimum number of fixtures, et cetera, that have to be met.
And I'm assuming, I'm inferring that a lot of considerations have to do with environmental requirements.
Absolutely. There's a number of environmental and fire prevention requirements that have to be met in terms of containment of fluids, containment of hazardous chemicals, et cetera. So there's a number of safety improvements or environmental improvements that have to be met with the new facility that are currently not being met with this facility. And this is adjacent to, this is part of a aquifer protection area too, so.
Yeah, I understand we do not have a fire suppression system in the building.
That's correct.
And that if the new facility is not built, the issue of installing a fire suppression system in this building has been investigated. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, so when you add a fire suppression system to a building that hasn't been designed for that, you're adding not just the weight of the pipe, but you're also adding the weight of water in those pipes. And so in addition to that, you also have codes that have changed over the years as well. So to convert this system into a sprinkler area, you're getting into some major structural upgrades.
And that expense would be really significant?
It would be pretty significant. Yeah, it would be pretty significant. I don't remember the dollar number at this point in time, but yeah, we did take a look at that some time ago, and the upgrades would be too significant that it wasn't worth the investment.
Just adding on to that, we actually looked at this when in the first round in 2019, and we kind of identified all of the code requirements throughout the building and what that added. And then we looked at the expense or the challenges of retrofitting this building pretty closely and what the additional costs. And it would be throwing good money after bad to do it because you still end up with a building that's not as serviceable as you want. So
yeah, in terms of that, once you start getting into those renovations improvements, now you start having to upgrade the facility to meet codes.
So as I'm sure you're aware, there's a movement afoot with respect to net zero energy.
Yep.
Conservation. So to what extent is the proposed building, to what extent does it have the capacity to address that issue?
So we worked with the committee. The committee had us work with National Grid, and we met with them, and they did a model for us in terms of energy efficiency. And so what we did at that point is we took what I consider to be the maximum return on your investment. Anything beyond that, and this was the words of National Grid, is anything beyond that, you're diminishing your rate of return. In other words, you're putting more money into your investment for more energy efficient systems. And what happens after that is your rate of return gets extended. It goes on longer. So what we feel we have is we have a pretty optimal system for this facility. And we worked with the committee to get it to where it is. What we have is we have a mixture. We have a combination of heat pump system with propane type systems, depending on the space and the use.
So would the facility be adaptable to future technological progression with respect to net zero energy?
Absolutely. So one of the things that we did in this case is the roofing's designed to be solar ready, and solar ready is well, the reason that most towns don't put solar on the roof right away is because it's an expensive endeavor, and the towns can't take, as a municipality, you can't take advantage of the tax credits that a private company can. So what many towns do is they lease their roof space to a private vendor so that they can get more benefit. The town can get more benefit.
Can you mention about the need for the wash and preserving these big equipment in the...
Yeah, absolutely. So the wash bay is kind of twofold. We talked about the environmental aspect originally, and vehicles washed right now are washed outside and the stormwater just goes into the stormwater system, and it goes down towards the pond or goes out the Mass Highway system to a wetland down the street. The new wash bay would be much more environmentally friendly, because now what you have is you have a contained system, and it's going to go into the sewer system. So all those salts and contaminants that are washed off the vehicles go into the sewer system. Now, the second component about that is the longevity of the vehicles. The vehicles, we talked a little bit earlier about vehicles today are inherently more complex and more expensive than the vehicles from when this facility was built. So it's in the town's best interest and fiscally responsible to try to protect your investment in those vehicles. And we have done case studies on this, and there's also other case studies out there. By washing your vehicles and protecting your vehicles and putting them inside, you are extending the life of your vehicle by at least 3 years. But in addition to that life extension, what you're also doing is you're preventing downtime, you're preventing maintenance costs, and you're keeping those vehicles on the road and doing the services that they need to do.
I was just wondering,
Yep.
one of them is, have you looked at the cost savings that you get from the new building in terms of energy efficiency, et cetera? And the second one is, do you know ballpark what the cost would have been for solar? I know we don't want to add to it.
Yep. Yep. I don't recall us ever pricing out the solar component. For all along, we advised the town that this is probably the process that you would likely follow. But we could, if the town's interested in that, we could certainly do that.
One comment.
Yep.
Speaking for myself and people I know, after seeing the debt service,
yep,
paying, I would have spent more if you could do so. You know.
And
I just a quick question.
Yep.
In my head. Will the new facility, taking into account all its systems with respect to environmental preservation, energy consumption, safety, and other matters, will that have an impact on the cost of insurance for this facility?
I can't speak to the cost of insurance. That's something that we have actually not gotten into. I do know we've run into cases where there's certain things that are in older facilities, certain things become non-insurable anymore. We've certainly run into that before, but I can't speak to the new facility and if your insurance costs would go down. But that's a very interesting question, because now you have a protected system. You have you got a non-sprinklered building here, and you have a lot of multi-million dollars invested inside this building. And so I have to believe that would be a benefit to the town.
Yeah, less risk.
Less risk, exactly. Yeah. Anything else?
Yeah, the cost of heating right now, this building we're in. We're going through over 500 gallons of oil every 2 weeks just to keep this place is like Swiss cheese heating this place.
Yes.
That oil, the heat that we're spending, the motor we're spending on oil to heat this place is just making it well enough for me to work out here.
Yeah.
And not only that, is when that door opens, fire to the heat.
It all goes away.
And
Gary the other day talked about the cost. What was the cost to?
Through November to February, it was like 10,000 for the propane and fuel. Every 2 weeks, we're putting in fuel.
500 plus gallons.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just not efficient at all.
And that's with me turning the heat down at night when I leave.
Right.
Well, the new building now will change us because we're not going to be opening these doors constantly. For this one time in the morning to get the vehicles out, but for the mechanic especially, it's always going to be warm in there because those doors will be always shut.
Yeah.
They're not going to get. We have to open up and take a machine out. I have to open up and get pipe out of here. I mean, this thing opens constantly, which is in the winter, it's just incredible.
It is. It's tough. And in the mechanics bay, the only time those doors are going to open and close is when I'm either pulling in a vehicle to repair or taking the vehicle out when it's done being repaired.
Have you been able to recently estimate the cost of the new building?
As far as energy, well, I will say, at the time that we looked at this very carefully, the estimate was like a reduction in energy costs of 50%
Yeah.
on a per square foot basis. Now, with the rising cost of fuel, it might even be greater than that.
I think the interesting thing is we talk about when the doors open, all that heat goes. In the maintenance phase, it's going to be a radiant floor heater. So now you've got the warmth is in the floor. And so you're not heating the air. So it's much more energy efficient when those doors open.
And didn't we also increase the R value of the?
We also increase the R value in those spaces as well. That's the insulation value for simple terms.
And as you can see in here, all these offices are in this bay. So every time a door opens for these guys to come to their offices, we're getting cold air. With the new building, will all be locked in. So you'll be coming in one major door just for offices and one for the barn. So a lot of the guys that are just working in and out of the office will not be in and out of this barn to open a door like this to let it in. So it's going to make a big difference on the heat consumption.
Also the dust aspect. Every time those doors open and close, all my expensive computer equipment, even if it's in that office, is getting covered with dust. I have to cover it and put it in a special place. The dust factor here is incredible. Because every vehicle that comes in and out, especially after sanding, plowing, salting, they're bringing all that dirt in here, as you can see on the floor. But when it dries and equipment, people walking, people moving, that dust goes into the air. I have, and not for nothing, air quality, I'm asthmatic. And I have to work on this. But I do. And not only that, is you're putting a lot of equipment in danger, especially computer equipment, but this air quality is bad. It is really bad.
I believe it.
It's about as much as I can go on that. And it's just, there's no way it's any further than that.
So Marvin mentioned the energy per square foot. If you just take the overall energy use, how's that estimate compare to current?
We had those numbers.
We have those numbers. Yeah.
We didn't take a second look at them
Yeah.
recently, but we had those numbers in the original. In fact, we might have gotten some information from you as part of that process.
So we got all that information also. We did that energy model for with National Grid. So I don't know what those numbers are offhand. Yeah, but that number that is out there. That's available.
Yeah, the Green Committee, we have our energy per square foot currently, so it'd be great if you provide us.
Absolutely, we'll get that information out there. Anything else? A lot of good questions.
It would be good to put this presentation up. I know we have the other presentation up, but there's a lot of new information that has come out in this one.
Yeah, I'll share that. Bruce, you want to officially close the meeting?
Sure. Just one last chance. Anyone have an additional question? Otherwise, I think we need a vote for adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
Okay, so we do roll call. Todd?
Aye.
Andy?
Aye.
Ruth?
Aye.
Monica?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Hey, thanks for coming. And, we're here. If you've got questions or want to tour around, we're more than willing to do that. And thank you folks out in Zoom. Appreciate it.
If anyone would like to take some